The following is a local resident producers program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Access Television, the City of Oshkosh, the Oshkosh Cable Television Advisory Commission, or Time Warner Cable.
Welcome to Eye on Oshkosh. I'm Cheryl Hentz, along with former Oshkosh Mayor and City Councilwoman Melanie Bloechl. On this particular edition of Eye on Oshkosh, we'll be splitting the show into two segments. During the first segment, we'll be talking about the Sesquicentennial events going on during this entire year. During the second half of the program, we'll be meeting with a local historian and author, Inky Youngworth. During this first segment, joining us is Arlene Schmuel from the Oshkosh Convention and Visitors Bureau. Arlene, welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We appreciate your being here. This is, of course, the year of Oshkosh's 150th birthday, and your committee, which you're a co-chair of,
Yes,
has been working very hard on putting some events together and so forth. Why don't you tell us first a little bit about the committee, who makes it up, and how you folks all kind of came together?
Well, in November of the year 2000, we got together, a couple people from the Chamber and from the Visitors Bureau, and compiled a list of all the organizations and the things in the city that put it together. We, invited somebody from the school board, and again, like I said, the Chamber, the Community Foundation, the Northwestern, OCAT, just all the different organizations, sent out a letter to probably about 40 people, and got a great response. A lot of them wanted to participate. We started meeting every month. We formed a steering committee and then several smaller subcommittees. But for the last year, the full committee was meeting each month, and we usually had 15, 20, 25 people a month coming to the meetings. So,
oh, that's wonderful. Who are some of the folks who are on the committee?
On the steering committee, Julie Pownell from MWI Travel is on that. Larry Spanbauer is my co-chair. The mayor has always been on that. Steve Lenz from Sawdust Days, Don Kiowa. Steve's been great with the events so far this year. Eileen Conley-Kiesler from the Community Foundation, Kevin Doyle from the Northwestern, Richard Walling from the city, Jim Metz, Inky Youngworth, Lynn Webster, Carol Fenrick, the Centennial Queen. So I know I'm leaving somebody out, and I apologize to whoever that is.
It's tough to cover all those people, and they've made such, big contributions. You feel bad if you forget anybody, so, thanking everybody in advance for all their hard work. We were talking before the show started, and you have just such a great sense of humor. You're a lot of fun. Are these meetings that you guys do, are they a lot of fun? I mean, do you get to kind of, when you hear about Sesquicentennial, first of all, just being able to say it is nothing short of a miracle.
That was a requirement.
Yeah, you had, in order to be on the committee, you had to be able to pass the test, right? So, there's a lot of work that goes into this, but is it some fun too? You guys are having a good time putting a lot of this stuff together when you're getting creative with what you want to do?
I don't think there was anybody on the committee that didn't enjoy it, or they wouldn't have, nobody was twisting anybody's arm to come back.
Okay.
So I don't think there was anybody that wasn't having a great time. In the beginning, it was just big idea fests. Let's do this, let's do that. I researched on the internet Sesquicentennial celebrations in other communities. We, seen some of the things that they did, and then tried to transform that into, if we'd have done everything, we'd have been celebrating till the bicentennial.
Has it been difficult to try to find funding to do some of the things that you've wanted to do? Because obviously, while people, I'm sure, are very appreciative of all the hard work, there's also financial responsibilities that go with putting all of this together, and that in tough economic times that we're facing right now has got to be kind of a challenge for you to come up with the dollars that you need as well.
We did have a separate fundraising committee, and they went to, there was a lot of organizations, companies, larger companies in Oshkosh that did contribute dollars. The city did set aside some money for it was their birthday, so We did a joint fundraising with Celebration of Lights, so some of the money went to that, and then we had the budget that we would put into events. But the great thing that happened throughout the year, or the preceding year, is that a lot of annual events were just changing the theme to make it a sesquicentennial event. So there was not hardly any cost involved. And people were coming forward and, with ideas and not really donations, like a Sawdust Days again. They had stickers printed with the Strata Communications did a logo for us. So there was a lot of in-kind, a lot of people in the
That's
community
wonderful.
wanting to be a part of it.
Sure. Going back for just a second to the steering committee, you had mentioned Lynn Webster, and I think it's appropriate at this time then to just simply mention that, of course, she did pass away on June 16th, very untimely, very unexpected, and her loss is going to be, I think, tremendously felt throughout this community. But is there anything in particular that you wanted to say sort of as a memorial to her?
It's incredible how much she's going to be missed. She was such a go-getter. The things that she organized, there's some things she was really organized in, or involved in the organization that she is missed, that she will not be here for. And you'll say it's bad timing. Any time is a bad time, but the Rotary clock in Opera House Square, the plaque has the big sesquicentennial logo. It's the Rotary's gift to the city, and she was so very important in that whole thing becoming a reality. And to die 2 days before the dedication was, like you say, bad timing. She'll be missed when Fountain of Life is going on in October and November, the play about Helen Farnsworth Mears. She was a big part of that. There was just, everybody's talking about, you get the call from Lynn, something I want to talk to you about, and you knew you were going to be off and organizing a project and getting something done, and she was wonderful, absolutely a wonderful person.
Well, she will definitely be missed. Now, you just mentioned an event coming up in October. Obviously, some events have been going on all year so far, since the whole year is the sesquicentennial, and it's not just one day. But what are some of the events that are yet to come? I mean, we're taping this in June. What's going to be happening for the balance of June and the rest of the year?
Okay, the end of June, June 29th, there's the Sesquicentennial Homes Tour. And some of the people in the Washington Avenue Historic District are opening up their home and letting you come through, and they've been sympathetically restored. And there is a donation involved with that, goes to the Winnebago County Historical and Archaeological Society. So that's going on June 29th. There is the Grand Opera House is still doing their monthly lecture series. So there's a speaker one Wednesday night a month that'll go on all the way through November, and we're looking at December. July 26th, there's going to be a historic walk, run, roll, and that's going to go through Menominee Park, come around Webster Stanley School, into the Washington Avenue District, past some of the great monuments in the park. We're having a sesquicentennial scavenger hunt September 20th in downtown Oshkosh, and to get your little stickers, you're going to have to know the history. The clues are going to be the history of the buildings. We did that last year. It wasn't the historic one, and it was about the company, the product they sold, but this year there'll be historic clues, so it'll be fun and learning.
The questions aren't going to be too tough now, are they?
Last year we had volunteers. If there were people walking down the street looking really, really discouraged and confused, the volunteers
I
came
get
up.
that way just looking for the Sawdust Days buttons.
Oh, is that hard or
Yes.
what?
I don't know who that sadistic person is that comes up with those clues, but we really need to talk to them.
And all this time working with Steve, I thought maybe I could find Mr. X is all that he's ever referred to by. So
Yeah.
Amazing.
the play Fountain of Life
Sure.
is going on, written by Mary Hiles and being performed by Oshkosh High School students at West and North and Lourdes. It'll be performed at the Grand, and it is the life of the sculptor Helen Farnsworth Mears. Festival of Trees, last year themed with Oshkosh's past. This year kind of looking at Oshkosh's future. So there's a lot of things going on aside from just the celebration of history.
Sure. Let's talk a little bit about this play again, because I'm a native of Oshkosh, and I have to admit I don't know who Helen Farnsworth Mears is. So maybe you can explain.
See, well, obviously Melanie knew before.
No,
so
I
maybe
really
she-
didn't. I'm lying.
She just
I
fakes
really,
it well.
No. I was so grateful that you admitted that because I was afraid to. I'm thinking, my God, my family and my husband's family have been here for a long, long time, and I didn't know who that was.
See, and that's a great part of the Sesquicentennial because now all this stuff is coming out.
Mm-hmm.
She was a sculptress. Have you been to the museum? You've seen
Sure.
the statue of the little angel twirling and blowing a horn called Joy Boy?
Yes.
That's a Helen Farnsworth Mears piece.
Is that, okay, all right.
Okay, and so this,
And
this
she was from Oshkosh?
yes,
Okay.
and this I believe she did move away. I think.
See,
maybe-
that's why we don't remember her. As soon as you leave, it's just, you know.
Yeah. she-
Yeah.
So actually, with the Oshkosh art history, there's a Galaxy event called the Oshkosh One Galaxy. There's a gallery event. It's going to be out of this world.
Yeah. Good catch.
That wasn't bad.
Yeah.
The Oshkosh 150, 150 Oshkosh artists, and that'll be the entire month of August. A special section of that is going to be a historic Oshkosh 150. And we're researching all these artists that were here from the past and putting together bios and, you know, photos of their work. So that'll be another part of it.
So they are artists from the past rather than a combination of past and present or up
The
and
artists from
coming?
the past are going to be a separate section. It'll have
Okay.
a look to it, kind of a
Okay.
tribute to art that's been in Oshkosh.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, you know, it's interesting because before the show started, we have Inky Youngworth that's out in the waiting area for his turn. And
Our green room.
Our green, yeah, that's a good term. I like that, green room. And we were talking about that, what an exciting time for our city that we really have and a very elaborate history. We had some really spectacular people. Unfortunately, some of us remember them and some of us don't. But I mean, it's an exciting time because even if you don't, the names don't resonate with you, that you have a certain level of pride that these people were from here, they became very successful, and yes, maybe they moved on, but you know, we've had some really, really, and I think the word you used was colorful.
Yes.
And
rich
I
and
like that
colorful.
word, rich and colorful, because you know, sometimes we had some whack jobs here too, but
I don't know the technical terms.
but I mean, I think it's really great for people here to remember that we came from something pretty special, and some pretty special people have lived here and continue to live here, and we need to celebrate that more. I mean, I know times are tough right now, and it's hard to get excited about things, and that's why I think it's really wonderful that you folks are working so hard. And I think we need to give you a big, you know, thank you, because this is a lot of work. There's a lot of research and time, and you know.
Well, it's been a huge committee. It wasn't any one person
Yeah.
that did anything. It was, you know, knowing the resources, knowing where to go and
Right.
who to ask and where to find out and what to get something from, and a lot of begging,
Yeah.
a lot of asking,
Sure.
you know, for favors.
Can you,
and
will you?
yeah,
You should.
would you? And it's amazing how many yeses we got because of pride. This whole
Sure.
resurgence and pride of
And I
being
think
from Oshkosh.
that's really something that I think stands out about the people of Oshkosh, is that we really are proud of who we are. And unfortunately, there are other places in the Fox River Valley that seem to feel as though we shouldn't be as prideful as we are, but we are. And I don't think that that's a negative thing. I think that's a really strong ethnic trait that our forefathers brought with them. You know, we talk a lot. One of the things that always used to kind of bother me being on the council is it always seemed like it was the same people who were always involved over and over and over again in committees and being involved in things. And even while you're listing some of your committee members, and I understand you kind of have to have the who's who because they know where things are, they know how to get things organized, and I do understand that and appreciate their hard work. Are there things that the locals, maybe Jane Doe or Bob Smith or whomever, that maybe would not normally jump forward and get involved, but this is something that really excites them, or they have family history? Is there things that they can be doing to get involved or help or participate?
You know, and the first announcement article, like the way I'm thinking, everybody's known about the Sesquicentennial forever because I have. It's been my life for so long. January 12th, there was a newspaper article announcing it's our Sesquicentennial year and a lot of stuff going on, and it had my phone number. And I spent 3 days on the phone with those people that are coming forward. A gentleman called me. His horse and buggy were in the 1953 parade. He still has the buggy, wants to know if he can be in the 2003 parade. Thought it would be neat to do that
That's
again.
amazing.
He is going to be in the parade. Just all the people that came forward with offers, with ideas, with and a lot of them we did follow through on.
Yeah.
One of the greatest things that's happened with this is in 1953 they had a pageant for Centennial Queen. And I'm not really sure how it went, you know, how they ran it back then, but there was a queen and then the runners-up were her princesses. Because of this year, we've gotten some of the princesses back together again. The queen is on the committee, and they came to the historic ball and they led the grand march. Since then, they've started going to lunch and they've formed a club.
Oh, how nice.
And they're calling it the Tiara Club. And one of them bought tiaras for all the rest. Except the queen had her own tiara, I mean her real tiara. But it's just, you know, when it was one of my volunteers that was telling me about it, that she was this Tiara Club, and I just got goosebumps. I
Well, I did too when you were just
Isn't
saying that,
it-
because
I mean,
that's
isn't
so
that great?
cool, because that's like relationships that'll last. You know, I mean, it was built on something fun that they did together, and now they bring that relationship back together
Because
again.
it was totally ripped apart, because they were teenage girls and they were competing and they wanted to be queen, and then they went on and got married and had not talked to, the majority of them had not talked in all this time. And somebody had told them, one of the organizers of the Centennial had told them that 50 years from now, you may not think so now, 50 years from now you will be remembered and you will be honored.
Really?
And then I just got the whole goosebump thing all over again.
And do they still have the elbow, wrist thing down? That's what I really want to know.
I teased them an awful lot about that. There are
One thing that came to mind also, you have a website, and we'll be putting the website address up during this segment so that folks can see where to go to find certain information about the different events. And by the way, I really, as I was checking it out, you've got a calendar script on there that is just amazing for anyone who is checking this out on the website. When you log on, it automatically brings up the month and the day that you're logging on to it, and it's just, I think it was a fantastic script that you're using for that.
And we'll have to, just like to thank Joy from the library, Joy Schwartz. She was our web guru. She created that for the...
Did a really nice job.
Yes, she did.
I was very impressed with that. That was one of the first things that struck me when I looked at it. You know, I was noticing that there are a number of exhibits
Yes.
over at the museum. Now, are those special exhibits just for the Sesquicentennial, or are those there year-round?
They're as all exhibits. I don't believe any of these are going to become permanent, other than the Winnebago room they've reopened. But there's a couple other ones. The Centennial Revisited is a temporary one. The Chief Oshkosh one are temporary ones, but there's still plenty of time to see them. They'll be up for a good part of the year.
Okay.
April 6th was April 5th was the actual day of incorporation when they signed the papers. So we referred to it as Anchor Weekend. And
April 6th, you said?
April 5th was the date, but then
April
April 6th, these 5 exhibits opened. So the museum staff was just crazy before that, running around trying to open 5 exhibits on the same day and still attend the festivities going on that weekend. And they did a great job.
Brad's doing one of these.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
You mentioned also the Sesquicentennial Walk Run on the 26th of July. If people want to get involved in that, how can they become involved? And is there an entry fee, as there would be for most walk runs, and where would those proceeds go to?
The proceeds are going to the Big Brothers and Big Sisters.
Okay.
And they can call our office. The forms are available at our office at Citizens First Credit Union. They are in the final planning stages now. One of our part-time employee, Kelly, she started as an intern, and I said, would you like a learning experience? How would you like to plan a walk? And she said, sure. I was kind of joking, and she said something to me the other day, were you kidding when you first asked me? And I said, yes, but now I've got another event.
Yeah.
The Sesquicentennial can be proud of another. So that'll all go to Big Brothers and Big Sisters.
Okay.
And they do have a title sponsor. Citizens First is doing that. So it's going to be...
So all told, by the time you're done with this, how many events will you have held? throughout the year? Do you have a number, or is it kind of an evolving kind of thing? Like you can potentially still add more events, do other things, or are they pretty much?
No, they're not set. Anybody at any time can come forward if they want to hold an event or a Sesquicentennial. I talked to somebody yesterday. They were talking about a Venetian boat parade. I said, can you make this a historic Venetian boat parade? We could, it's a Sesquicentennial. So what spurred us on, in the 53 program, there was a letter from the mayor to those 50 years hence celebrating the Sesquicentennial, let them be spurred on by our efforts. And he did a whole week, and we thought, we're doing a year.
Oh, yeah, challenge us, will ya?
Yeah, I'd say I dare you.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
we dare. So the events, actual events that the committee is planning and holding, I mean, we did a lot that weekend, and a lot of it is organizing and getting everyone together.
Now, what was really interesting, you and I talking, like I said earlier, and I keep hearkening back to that because it was really a very good conversation, and I want to share it with folks. It was your great-grandfather that moved to this area?
Two greats.
Two greats, and then moved into the Fond du Lac area. So your family's actually from Princeton, Montello, that kind of area, but then a family member moved here and then moved off to Fond du Lac, and then you're here as well.
I moved here in '79.
In '79. Now, you have to have, like, I mean, an amazing commitment to Oshkosh, to be from here, it's kind of like this genetic pride thing. To be somewhat of a transplant kind of person and to spend this kind of time and energy and call it the labor of love that you have. Have you learned things about Oshkosh that are, I mean, a lot of us probably don't know all of the kind of detail that you know about our own community. Is there like a special story or during your research that you just thought was like the neatest thing that you found to date?
Well, first of all, I do consider myself from Oshkosh. I consider a splendid lateral, You can kind of wave it. It's only 17 miles, so. I came here, some friends here in 1979 had a birthday party for me, and I came and I never left again.
See,
and,
I told you, once we get you.
Yeah, that's it.
Grab right onto the heart.
And walking down Main Street in the old buildings, and yes, Fond du Lac has those too, and I don't know why I didn't appreciate them quite as much when I was in Fond du Lac. But just over the name Oshkosh,
Sure.
and just learning the things that I did the first year or so that I was here, it just, I don't know, it's just you can see the connection from today to the past. And so many people are aware of it. There seems to be a group that when you talk to somebody, they know, like, that used to be this, and used to be this,
Yeah.
and used to be that,
And they beam when they talk about it. I noticed that when you talk to folks who really understand and know the past and the richness of the past, they beam. It's just a thing that you have. But so as you're doing all of this research and you're learning all of these really cool stories about Oshkosh, do you have one in particular that you thought, wow, if people knew that, that would be like so cool, they would love it?
Are you referring to the story we talked about earlier?
Well, I thought it was pretty cool, but if you got a better one, by all
All
means.
right, guys, let me in on it.
No, we were talking earlier about Main Street and how ladies didn't walk on the left side of Main Street because that's where other establishments had worked.
Whorehouses.
Okay.
Well,
Leave
I
it to
mean,
Melanie can be reached at 230.
well, you know, I mean, that's what they were, brothels, if people
Brothels,
feel better
yes.
about calling them that.
So
but,
ladies
you know.
didn't walk on that side of the street.
Yeah.
And
But I didn't realize, did you know that?
No,
I did not
no.
know that
Well,
you weren't allowed
well,
to walk
our
on-
next guest,
Well, you were
Inky
allowed to.
Youngworth, had mentioned that to me also, but prior to him mentioning it, I hadn't known it either, so.
And the whole rumor about the tunnel, the catacombs, that is kind of a direct link back to that, because that connected to the, the Athern and the Grand across the street, so that, and again, totally rumor, that the ladies, the other ladies, Melanie's ladies,
The slinky ladies.
wouldn't be seen crossing
So they
the
were
street.
like skitching back and forth in the
Sure,
tunnel?
yeah, that was,
That
That's just one
reminds me,
rumor
there
about-
was a book that was just published
Yes.
earlier this year on the name escapes me, but it was a local woman who wrote the book, and it's all about the underground of Oshkosh.
It's Oshkosh Underground and Oshkosh Down Under, I'm sorry.
There we go.
Sorry, Julie.
Yeah.
And it's about, the main part is about the basement businesses because to buy land to have a business on Main Street was kind of expensive. It was scarce. So there'd be a business on the second floor, there'd be a business on the street level, and there'd be a business in the basement. You've seen Cheers.
Sure.
Cheers is a basement business. So that's like a lot of what the book is about. And it does touch on the tunnels and the rumors about that too.
Now that was Julie, is it,
Julie Kershak, yeah, Johnson.
yes, good. I remembered the Johnson part, but I couldn't remember the,
It's KRY stuff.
yeah. And she actually works at one of the local establishments.
She
She
does.
does.
Jansen's,
A
yeah.
very historic.
My brother and
establishment.
sister-in-law were just in town from Arizona, and they actually took a trip down there to get her book, and she was kind enough to autograph it for them. They were really jazzed about it. They're like, hey, you know, this is pretty cool.
She worked on that book, I believe she told me 12 years, and
Wow.
did not plan it to be anything to do with the Sesquicentennial. And it came out, you know, in February, March of 2003, and I had been talking to her. She did her first book signing in February. That's how you say how it all comes together to plan a
Yeah.
huge
It's like meant to be.
Sesquicentennial event. So that was a part of it, one of the books.
That's great.
So if people want to get involved with events or come up with new events, they can contact you.
Yes.
Where should they contact you? How should they contact
They
you?
can call me at the Convention and Visitors Bureau.
And what is that number?
303-9200.
Okay.
Give me a call, and we'll talk about maybe there's some event that's going on that you can fit in with.
Or even volunteer. Are you looking for volunteers for other things as
During
well?
during Sawdust Days, and they were having a Sesquicentennial souvenir booth, and we're looking for people, you know, to staff that. And there's just all kinds of, we call them Sesqua elves.
Sesqua elf.
Yeah, we needed a few of them, you know,
Well, that's
earlier
harder to
this
say
year.
than
I was just going to say
Sesquicentennial.
Sesqua elf.
Sesqua elves.
Yeah, not only is it a hard word, then I've been making up words to go with it.
Oh,
okay.
do you have your own language too? I have one of those too.
We've already heard part of yours
Yeah.
this evening.
Usually mine's beeped out.
We've only got a couple of minutes left. Just kind of in summary, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you would like viewers to know that you'd like to touch on?
Probably. I mean, there's so much that's been involved. There's things available, souvenirs for the year. There's history pieces that are the history book is going to be available. I want everybody to just be as proud of being from Oshkosh and to learn about the
shirts?
history.
Do you get shirts? Can you buy like shirts that say like Oshkosh? Or I'm sure you probably don't have like Chief Oshkosh on them because that's like taboo now, isn't
Actually, they did a plate in '53, and the chief with his buffalo
Yeah.
hat was the logo. So we've been using that because it's the '53
Yeah.
logo. So you know, we got it through a loophole. It's on the back of 2 buses. Sawdust Days has put it on their button. And
Wow.
But can we get a shirt?
Well, you can get a shirt from Sawdust Days.
Okay.
It says Oshkosh Sesquicentennial Sawdust Days Day, and it's got I was calling buffalo head.
I'm going to buy
There's
an extra
respectful,
small.
isn't it?
Then my future family will think I was a very tiny person.
Bury it in a time capsule.
Yeah.
Well, I've learned quite a bit. I want to thank you very much for being here.
Yes, thanks
and
so much.
again, for anyone who wants to get involved, give Arlene Schmuel a call. The telephone number is 303-9200,
Yes, it is.
and the website address is www.oshkoshonthewater, all one word, .com/150. Thank you very much. It's
Thank
been a real
you. I
pleasure
really
and
enjoyed being
enjoyable.
here. It's so
Um,
fun.
We have to take a short break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Clarence Inky Youngworth talking about the history of Oshkosh. We'll be right back. Hi, and welcome back to the second half of Eye on Oshkosh. I'm Cheryl Hentz, still with former Oshkosh Councilwoman Melanie Bloechl, and joined in this half by Clarence Youngworth, better known to people throughout the community as Inky Youngworth. Now, how did you ever, and thank you very much for being here, how did you ever come up with the nickname Inky?
When you were in this bloody sixth board, if you didn't have a nickname, you were a sissy.
You know, I was going to ask you that because
You were a sissy.
in Oshkosh, there's like a certain age group of gentlemen. You have names like Guppy and Chink, which probably wouldn't be politically correct today. But, you know, Chink Bloechl, I mean, nobody ever thought anything of that. And Guppy and, oh my God, Hoo Hoo or what, I mean, Schnooky and...
Hamble,
Oh, exactly.
Pink Eye.
So they really don't have any meaning per se.
They have a meaning.
Do they?
They certainly have a meaning. In my case, in the sixth board with all the kids, there must have been about 100 kids that hung around the Franklin School. And I was the shortest kid amongst the gang. And one of the Steckboro boys that lived on 7th Street, when I was about 7 years old, because of my short size, he called me incubator baby.
Oh, and that's how you got Inky.
That's how. Then they started calling me incubator baby. And then being kids, they got tired of saying incubator baby, and they finally got shortened up to Inky.
I thought maybe Inky came because you were a writer. And
I was just going to say
no,
that. That was
no,
my thought,
and
too.
People sometimes think I was called Inky because I started off as a draftsman at Oshkosh Truck. See, and I was the ink expert at Oshkosh Truck when I started there.
Now,
And I
do you
did all
think the nickname might have gotten you where you were in your life, that it just kind of works out that way?
The relation calls me Sonny. The citizens or friends call me Inky. And in the Army, I was known as Hayway.
Hayway, what did you do to get that one?
Haywy. I joined the Wisconsin National Guard, and the company commander was part of my relation. I won't mention his name. And I never would call him Captain. I was a company clerk for Company H in 127 Infantry. And I knew him so well because he was a relation that I never would call him Captain. I'd say, hey, Eddie. And he got ticked off because I would never.
You didn't give him the
I
G.I.
didn't
Joe
give him the
stuff,
G.I.
huh?
salute, because, being a relation, I did. And then he'd start, the fact that I say, hey, Eddie, he sort of was kind of, didn't feel too good about it because I didn't show the proper respect. So he called me way afterwards. Hayway. And that's Hayway. And all my Army buddies know me as Hayway.
You know, it's funny because when you talked about how the kids used to call you incubator baby, when I was growing up, my family was from the west side. The Sherman family was from the west side.
Yep.
But my family, the Robertsons, were over on the north side. I grew up on Elmwood Avenue, which was right around the corner from Lamar Avenue, which was called Incubator Avenue for the longest time because we had like a ton of kids. I mean, so they always called it Incubator Avenue because there was a million little kids running around.
Sure.
So I just think that's funny how some of those names come up, you know, and how people got those nicknames.
Yeah. And the nickname, the word Nick itself comes from the English language way back hundreds of years ago. The word nick means to cut. Originally, a nick, nickname originally meant something that was derogatory.
Yeah, I had a couple of those. I don't know that they call them nicknames though.
But that's where the nickname comes from. The word nick comes from the English version, which means to cut.
Okay.
So when they gave you a handle like that, it was supposed to be a little...
No, not really. Not in our neighborhood.
Oh,
It was either a characteristic that you
Okay.
had, like we had a cop in the neighborhood, Tiny Hobley. Tiny Hobley, who was 6'4". He was
What was Bobby's nickname?
Big Dome.
Big Dome?
Yep.
Oh, I'm writing that down.
There you go. Well, while she's writing his nickname down, you know, you've written something like 10 books, I think?
I'd say I've got 4 volumes on the history of Oshkosh, 4 volumes on the tales of Oshkosh, the Bloody Sixth Ward. And then I've written a diary of National Guardsmen in World War II, which is about the Oshkosh contingent that was in World War II. Then I've written, co-authored a history of Oshkosh Truck Corporation. So that's 8. I got to stop and lose track. Yeah, it's about 10, 11 books.
Okay. Where do you get all these ideas from? And what was your interest originally in starting to write books on our history?
You know what? I lived in this city all my life. I never paid attention to the history until I started at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh at the age of 56.
Really?
Mm.
And I've always had an interest in history, world history, military history. I've read history practically all my, if I was a teenager on. I just love history. I started at the university at the age of 56 because Oshkosh Truck was picking up the tab for any employee to get a university degree. And I thought I'd take advantage of it. And I love of history, so I majored in history.
Oh,
Here I'm
nice.
56 years old, and I'm sitting with 19, 20, 21-year-old.
Boy, that had to be a shock.
And I thought before I take the whole full course, I would try one course to see if I still had it up here. And it just so happened that it was I think it was a world history course. And just by chance, I got the toughest professor in the history department at UW-Oshkosh.
We probably want his name later so the kids know who not to take, huh?
He's gone.
Oh.
He's gone. And when talking amongst kids, he says, you don't give A's. He's that tough.
Wow.
I'm a 56-year-old man sitting in his history class, sweating the test
Sweating
and
bullets.
everything. And when the semester was over with, I got an A.
Hey,
That's
all right.
wonderful.
And
All right.
And that really set me on fire.
Oh, yeah.
And then I decided to go on, and then I took all the courses in history that I could, and eventually it took me 12 years to get my degree. I got a Bachelor of Science degree with a major in history and a minor in religion. What started my writing, I had trouble speaking before. I just was I was shy before I went to school. I'm just that way. We had to take a history of Wisconsin course. And the professor assigned me to a topic about the history of Oshkosh. And that was about an hour's talk.
Oh, my.
And I put together all my experiences that I had in Oshkosh because I was born in 1919 and I had lived in Oshkosh all my life. And the class was about 80 people, and there was a lot of teachers there because the teachers at that time had to take a course on the history of Wisconsin for their teaching degree.
Okay.
So I'm standing up at the podium with all these intellectuals hanging out there, and I don't know what possessed me, but I talked for about an hour, and when I got done talking about the history of Oshkosh as I knew it, there was complete silence.
Really?
And the professor was sitting in the back room. He was the head of the history department. He come up to the front of the class. He says, did anybody tape this talk? He says, this is the best talk ever given at the university about history.
Really?
My head-
Wonderful for
My
you.
head was that big, and
And so launched the writing career.
and so launched a writing career because he told me, after class, he says, Clarence, why don't you put some of this stuff down in a book? And I was still working full-time at Oshkosh Truck because it took me 12 years to get the degree. I graduated at the age of 68.
Wow.
And I worked at Oshkosh Truck till I was 68. And then
Well, you almost had to if they were going to pay for your education, right? I mean, fair is fair, Yankee.
fair is fair. And I loved engineering work, and
Yeah.
that's why I kept on working. And then I retired at the age of 1987, and I graduated in 88. And then after I got done graduation, I have a habit of taking a walk every night. I've walked all my life for recreation and for exercise. And the inspiration come to me, why don't I write about the 6th Ward?
It's what you know.
That's what
Yeah.
I know. I grew up in it as a kid.
Sure.
So I typed that, I sat down at the, I typed it on a manual typewriter. History of the Bloody 6th Ward, I called it. The inspiration for the Bloody 6th Ward came because of the woodworkers' strike of 1898. And I put all my ideas down, and my wife is my editor.
She's a darn good one, too, by the
And
way.
she was excellent without her, and didn't do it. And she told me, she said, honey, this is pretty good. So I decided to take and publish just a few books of the history of the book, intending it for the family and for people of 6th Ward. Kinko's happened to have a sale on for, I think, 3 cents a sheet for printing a book. So I went down there, ordered 300 books, you know, to give
Sure.
Theresa. And the idea came to me, I take to some of the stores that I knew, like Fields Restaurant.
Sure.
And to my surprise, I sold 300 or 400 books, 300 books in about 3 days.
Wow. Amazing.
I'm amazed. I'm an amateur. I consider myself an amateur writer, but 300 books in a couple of days, and I didn't realize. So I got another 300. Those went. Then I went put in different places, different taverns, like
Sure.
Ohio Street Tavern, other taverns, beauty
But don't
shops.
you think, I mean, speaking about how fast these books went, you and I were talking earlier before the show. Do you think that it would not be, I guess, one of the things that I'm always concerned with, we spend so much time in the schools teaching our children about other people's history.
Right.
We teach about other people's cultures, and that's not a bad thing. It's, you know, the more experience and exposure that they have to different ways of life, they can appreciate ours even more. But why don't we spend enough time teaching our children here about our own very rich, very colorful at times? I mean, some of the things that they could learn about the people and how the city was years ago, 150 years ago, I think could curl their hair. I mean, it's very exciting stuff, and to know that you and your family were a part of that in any way, shape, or form. Is there any way that we can get the schools more excited about this kind of stuff?
And this is what I've been doing since I've written the Bloody 6th Ward and the success of that book. That book somehow got into, I make a habit of the books that I write, I give the library 6 copies.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave the library 6 copies of the Bloody 6th Ward. And at that time, in 1991, they had most read books in the public library. They had the list on the Northwestern. And the Bloody 6th Ward was on that list. I'm amazed that
But
people...
Does it surprise you, though, really, to know that people want to know about their history?
That it surprised me at the time.
But now that you've been out and doing all of these talks, and I mean, people talk about you all over town. If you want to know anything, you call Inky Youngworth. I mean, you must be barraged with people looking for information. Or
So far, I think I keep a list of up to 240 talks that I've given to the university, to the high schools, and especially to the grade schools. When the kids today in the grade schools, I've talked in all the grade schools in Oshkosh, and when the 3rd graders and 4th graders study Oshkosh, they call me in, and I talk to the 3rd graders, and I tell the 3rd graders what it was like when I was been in the 3rd grade.
oh, neat.
And it's surprising the interest that those kids have.
Do their faces kind of light up?
Their faces light up, and the teachers have all the kids write cards and thank you notes. And I've got them by the hundreds at home because I've given maybe 100 talks to grade school children.
But how gracious of you to give that much of your time.
Oh yeah, I'm happy to do it because I just love the third graders especially because they got questions, and especially when I talk about outhouses.
Oh,
Anki, you've mentioned several times the bloody 6th Ward. For people who don't know what the 6th Ward is and what made it bloody, maybe you could enlighten us a
You're
little
right.
bit.
The 6th Ward boundaries, to give you the boundaries, when the city of Oshkosh started in 1853, they divided the city into wards for political purposes. I think that originally there was only 3 wards. And then as the population grew, and then they had expand ward. Now the 6th Ward grew because of one man, and that was Sheeny Steckbar. Steckbar's Tavern.
now Sheeny Steckbauer, how was he related to Otto Steckbauer, who was involved with the fire department and
That was no relation.
really? Now, see, I always wondered
See,
if that was the same
Because
family.
the Steckbar, Otto Steckbar, the fireman, fire chief, he spelled it S-T-O-E-G,
Oh,
B-A-U-E-R.
okay,
And Sheeny Steckbar was S-T-E-C-K-B-A-U-A-R.
okay.
And what Sheeny Steckbar had done, he had started a grocery store on the corner of Ohio and 6th Street first. Then he decided to start a grocery store, I think it was 1893, 1892, on the corner of 6th and Idaho Street. He was Catholic, and he had a good business. And to increase his business, he would lend money to people that were living in the neighborhood so they could bring their relatives over from Germany.
Really?
And what happened, that the 6th Ward boundaries grew, the growth of the 6th Ward grew so fast because of the aid that Mr. Steckbar had given to the people, and it was a tendency in those days, in the early part of the 20th century, for people to settle amongst like people.
Mm-hmm.
The 6th Ward happened to be German Catholic.
Right.
So it was natural for the people coming, the German Catholics coming from Europe, from Austria, Czechoslovakia, Germany, to settle amongst like people. And eventually, the 6th Ward became totally German Catholic, probably 95%. It's a cultural thing in human nature that you like to settle amongst people that think like you do, that speak the same language, have the same culture.
Comfort levels.
The it's comfort level.
Especially when you're coming from someplace you don't speak the language many times. Sure.
That's right.
So the fact that they weren't settling initially amongst like people, is that what made the 6th Ward kind of bloody?
The 6th Ward got its bloody term during the strike of 1898, the woodworkers' strike of 1898. That was one of the most vicious strikes in the history of the labor industry in the Midwest at that particular time. It was so violent. Because of the conditions of the workers, they went out on strike, I think it was May 1898. If the men that worked in the mills manned the picket lines to keep strike breakers from crossing, and if they were recognized, they would never work in this town again. That was the culture back in the 1890s. This was
A one mill town kind of.
it was a one-mill town, and the only people that could man the picket line would be women and kids. My grandmother, my aunts, my uncles, when they were kids, they manned the picket lines.
And where were these strikes being held? Was this the Payne Lumber?
The Payne Lumber Company and Morgan's.
Yeah.
The strike became so violent that the mayor called out the National Guard.
Wow.
They set up machine guns on a corner of 6th and Oregon Street by Morgan's. And the people manning the picket lines, like my grandmothers and the kids, my uncles and aunts when they were little kids, they would put in their apron, grandmas would put in their apron salt, pepper, everything you could think of, and throw them at the people that were trying to cross the picket line. And the Oshkosh Northwestern, at the middle of the strike, said, I said they were stupid enough to put an article in the Northwestern that the violence of the strike was due to those terrible foreigners from the 6th Ward.
Oh!
I
You know,
got-
I don't think they still like the Northwestern. I don't know. I think that might have something to do with some of the comments like fish wrap and things like that. Well, hey, you know, that we have a long memory, do we not?
We have a long memory. And then the Bloody Sixth Ward got that strike because of the violence of the people from the Sixth Ward who were at the, and you
Who
have
were
to,
predominantly the workers, because this was a blue-collar area. This was very...
anything south of the Fox River was probably blue collar worker. The German Catholics settled primarily in the Sixth Ward. There was a number of Catholics, German Catholic that settled around St. Vincent's, which happened to have a mixture of Irish and German population. And the Sixth Ward also developed a history of bloody six during the 20s and 30s because of the fact that we were an isolated community. We were really a ghetto. And the Sixth Ward boundary in the early years of Oshkosh would be from Rush Street on the north and Sawyer Avenue on the west, which was mostly farmland, and the river and Minnesota Street on the east, and 9th Street on the south.
That's a pretty good-sized district.
That was a pretty sized district in there. And of course, most of the German Catholics settled around Steckbar's Tavern.
Well, there's nothing wrong with liking a good beer after church.
And
And they all went to Sacred Heart Church.
all went to Sacred Heart Church. There was very few Lutheran people that lived in the Sixth Ward. This is the age of animosity towards there was a lot of anti-Catholicism in this country. I don't know if people know of the Know Nothing Party. The Ku Klux Klan held a convention in 1925 here in Oshkosh. I got pictures in one of my books of the Ku Klux Klan marching down Main Street with their robes on. And the Ku Klux Klan in Oshkosh stood for the KKK. They were against kikes, coons, and Catholics.
Really?
Yep. They burned crosses on Lake Winnebago. They burned crosses in the old Franklin School across the street from the house. The anti-Catholicism in this community was very, very strong.
I hate to say this, I was a Lutheran. Really? So, like, there was, were the Lutherans behind some of the anti-Catholicism? Or was it just overall in the country?
This anti-Catholicism came from starting with the colonization of America. Because the feeling was that any Catholic owed allegiance to the Pope and not to the President of the United States.
Well, I got to ask you a couple questions. We've only got like 5 minutes left. How does this time go so fast?
Flies.
You know, one of the things, now you're in the process of writing another book.
Right.
And that is about?
This book is going to be the 100th Sacred Heart Church, which is a nucleus of the Sixth Ward, of the Bloody Sixth Ward. I'm writing the 100-year history of Sacred Heart Church, which started in 1906, and I'm covering the 100 years, and I'll finish the book by the end of 2005.
That's wonderful.
And I'm starting from 1906 with pictures and stories, how the church developed.
Now, people who want to get a hold of these other books of yours, they can be purchased at the Little Professor bookstore.
Right.
And so if anybody wants those, she has all of those there.
She has exclusive rights to my book, sell my books. Because when I first started off, I used to take them to different places of business, and I had trouble getting my money back.
Sure, well,
which is
unfortunate.
In
any of your books, do you cover like the river rats and the shanties and that kind of stuff?
You name any kind of subject, and I probably have covered the river rats. Each of my books, say the eight books I've written on the history of Oshkosh, probably got about 14 or 15 chapters, and every chapter is a different subject.
That's great.
Prostitution, taverns, railroads, schools, cemeteries, geology of the area, anything you can think of. And my intention in writing these books was to write them and keep the chapters short, to the point, so it would appeal to people that would never pick up a history book. Because a history book, a regular history book, is very dull reading, as anybody knows that's gone
Yeah.
to school.
Sure.
And I meant, and I wrote, my books are written in the way I talk and in the way the Sixth Ward talked.
So
The
like
dialect.
us.
Yeah, the way, and that's what where the success has been.
Enki, someone apparently, and I apologize, we had been given a wrong time cue. Something somewhere fell through the cracks, and we have to end this segment. But we'd like to have you back again sometime
would
if
come back.
you
You
would.
have to,
I
because
come
there's
back.
so many
We
questions.
got lots of things to cover with you yet. But thank you very much for joining us, and thank you, Enki, for being here. Sorry to end this so abruptly. Take care. We'll see you next time on Eye on Oshkosh. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.